Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another chapter of Experiencer Interviews. And today we've got another amazing soul coming to us from the US. We have Sev Tok on board today. Sev Tok is a speaker, author, experiencer, radio host, spiritual counselor, and experiencer advocate. She is also the former MUFON State Director for North Carolina and was on the executive committee of the Experiencer Resource Team. Originally from Istanbul, Turkey, Sev emigrated to the US as a little girl, not knowing English, as she started first grade and earned a Bachelor of Science degree in biology from Loyola University. In 2017, Sev moved to the Inner Banks of North Carolina and had a life-altering experience. She came face to face with Greys, who burned two red X marks onto her back. Sev's ET contact started at the age of 10, but she kept it hidden until she came out in 2018 as a speaker at AlienCon, and through her book, You Have the Right to Talk to Aliens, endorsed by renowned UFO researcher Kathleen Martin. As an experiencer advocate, Sev provides personal guidance to experiencers. For 14 years, Sev has been conducting soul purpose sessions with clients around the world, helping them activate their life's purpose while redesigning their auric field to strengthen manifestation skills. You can watch Sev on History Channel's Ancient Aliens and The Proof Is Out There, Gaia TV's Beyond Belief with George Noory, ABC News Nightline X, and she is featured in the Canadian TV docu-series Encounter, UFO Physical Contact on TETV. You can listen to Sev on global interviews, and she speaks at conferences around the world. So Sev, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you, Yan. It's my pleasure.
Do you have any family members that have had contact like yourself?
Mm. I have a sister and a mother and a father. All of them are psychic and very intuitive, all three of them. My parents taught me and my sister how to meditate when I was in 5th grade. So they've all been in contact with the other realms. But growing up, they never put it in terms of coming in contact with an ET. I think my sister has, and it scared her. They could well have been having ET contact, but in their mind, they described it more in a supernatural way. So it was other types of beings. I was told that by the ETs, by the Greys, I was told that all my parents and my sister were contacted, but I was really the only one out of the family that was the most interested and wanted to continue. And I never really talked about this much. My father passed away before my book came out, and so I never had the opportunity to talk about the ET aspect with him. Both of my parents were believers. We completely believed that there were other civilizations and other planets and other stars, that there were other astral planes, that we have souls. This is how I grew up.
Fascinating. Now, your first memories of contact is at the age of 10, but do you remember anything prior to that, like at the age of 3? Did anything happen to you?
I do not remember anything ET related before the age of 10.
So what happened to you at the age of 10?
I was living in a suburb of Washington, D.C. And so I'd been speaking English for about 3 years at that point because I started first grade not knowing English. But at that age, you learn it overnight. It was like I started school in what, August, September. By Christmas, the kids were telling me who Jesus was and what Christmas was and what God was. And I was understanding because I didn't know. I'm like, who's Jesus? We had to do some kind of manger scene. And I'm new to English and I'm new to Christmas. I remember they told me all about Christmas, and you have this tree in your house, and there's a man that flies around with deer. And I remember just looking at the kids going, are you serious? Like, you really believe this? I never believed it at a young age. But I had enough English in just a few short months to be able to have that conversation because you know how you are as a kid. And what was I saying?
Well, we were talking about the your first experience at the age of 10.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. I was living in a suburb called Crofton, which is very close to Annapolis, Maryland. And for 2 years, at night, I would go to sleep, and then at night, I would find myself outside looking up in the sky, and there would be a spaceship coming. And each time it came from a different direction. And every time I was so happy, just so happy, like, yay, 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 he's coming back. Because he felt like a long lost brother, a relative, someone that I loved dearly. And the ship would come and it would hover right over my head. And it was so big that it would block out the sky. And it would land. Uh, Stairs would descend and this door would open and this being would come down to greet me. And the being looked very humanish, very, very human. It was a man, young, like 20s or 30s, dark hair and dark outfit, whether it was two-piece or one-piece, I don't know. And its ears were just slightly pointed, slightly, but nothing like Spock. And I wasn't into Star Trek. And he was just making sure I was okay. That's all I remember. And so this went on for 2 years, and it happened so many times that I lost count. I never told my parents. I never told anybody. I could have. I could have because I was so open-minded, but I didn't. And each time at the end, I would come to in my bedroom, ding, like wide awake. There's no sleepiness, there's no grogginess. I describe it like being plopped into this 3D reality from a completely different dimension, wide awake. And I would be confused because my bedroom didn't feel as real as talking to my space brother. That was real. This was not real. And I would tell myself, oh, just forget about it. And it's time to get dressed and go to fifth grade. So that's what I would do, go to school and try and act normal. So this went on for a couple of years. And the last visit was different because the last visit, I was with a group of kids and I had never been with other kids before. And we were standing on the ground watching the ship fly away. And we were collectively very sad because we knew we weren't going to see him again. And that's when I heard in my head, it's time to get to work. And I had no idea what that meant. Now, maybe I have an idea. So those are my first conscious memories.
Getting back to that human male, do you recall the types of conversations you've had with him?
I cannot remember word for word, sentence for sentence. I could just remember feeling loved and feeling like he was asking me questions to make sure I was okay in every way possible, mentally, physically, spiritually, everything. That's all I remember. Did I go on the ship? Maybe, but I don't remember.
Because you would tend to black out and wake up in your house.
Yeah, maybe one day I'll remember.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe one day I'll remember any kind of contact I had before then. But right now, I don't remember.
So how did you come to appear in front of the craft? So would you be like in your bedroom, then a second later you'd be in front of the craft, or
Yeah, I'd be outside standing in the grass. I'd be in a field and the craft would come. And it just felt very natural. Every time it came, I'm like, oh, good, I'm here again. Like this is happening again. Like I missed it. I'm glad it's happening again. It was a great feeling. And that's why it was so confusing when I woke up in my room. I don't know how to describe it. And I don't know if you've had this feeling, Anne, where this doesn't feel as real as some other experience. Do you know you've had it? What did you have it with?
well, it's a sort of disassociation. Um, like you don't belong here, and there's like the you feel love when you're with them. Like
Yes.
Yeah. To me, it felt like being in heaven, sorrow. Um, yeah,
Oh,
it's weird.
yeah, it is. Yes, you're right. It is a
Um,
different feeling. And it feels colder here,
oh
right?
yeah, yeah.
Colder.
Um,
But it just feels fake. It just felt like this isn't real. And I didn't know, I had no one talked to me like that when I was a kid. No one said, you're in a matrix. This is all a simulation. We didn't talk like that when I was little. So for me to think this isn't real was such a crazy idea. I would just ignore it.
yeah. And the fact that you didn't tell anyone, I my mom would tell me to not talk about this just in case, but for some reason I thought everybody had these types of experiences happen to them. So to me, I put that aside and I went on and and had a normal upbringing and all that. Now, okay, coming back to you being with other children.
Yeah,
So how did the other children come to be in that same area where you were?
I don't know.
Don't know.
And we were lined up. And I don't remember looking into their faces, but I remember we were all about the same height. So I assumed we were about the same age. So I was around 12. But it was understood that there was like we were a brotherhood or we were together, or I understood that, oh, they've been on the ship too. Like it was understood we're doing this together. But I had never seen them before in 2 years. And now I wonder, am I meeting them? How would I
Perhaps.
know? Would I know?
Well, if they went through the same experiences that you have had and the
Yeah.
same realization and you wanted to be more involved within the community, you'd go to UFO conferences. You probably did in the corridor.
You're right. We probably walked right by each other,
Yeah,
stood next to each other in the elevator. You're right.
there you go. Um,
Yeah.
now, okay, so what happened to you? Did things stop after the age of 12?
ET wise, yes, possibly from what I can remember, but I was very active in the supernatural world. All kinds of supernatural stuff was happening to me, all kinds. And this continued until I got married twice, and my second marriage, I left. And right after that, so this is around 2012, maybe something like that. All of a sudden, the ET stuff started happening again. So from what I remember, there was a break. Maybe what I was reading as supernatural might have been ET related, maybe. But definitely without a doubt, the ET stuff started after I left my second marriage. And it started with I had several signs, but the biggest one was one night when I was shown a baby in a tube. The Gray showed it to me. I have a picture in my book. And I woke up and I just told myself, okay, I'm not going to tell anybody about this. Uh, so then I'm like, okay, then I guess I'm back in contact now with the Grays. Um, Let me see. I want
I
to
do
find.
have it. I'll be able to add it to the video, but yeah, you could go ahead.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yep.
So I found myself in a dark room looking at this tube that was about as tall as I am. And there was a baby floating on the top. And its eyes were open. And they were the bluest eyes I've ever seen in my life. And it was in this liquid that was kind of fluorescent, bluish, kind of had a hue. And even though I couldn't tell the sex because of the way its legs were positioned, I just intuitively knew it was a boy. But I didn't feel anything towards it at all. And then I sensed something behind me and I turned around. And there were three grays, tall, medium, and short. And this is before I knew that they even came in different sizes. And all three of them said to me, we're just going to stand back here, take all the time that you need. There's no hurry. And I turned back around and I'm completely confused. Why am I staring at a baby in a tube? And then ding, I come to in my room. Well, we'll move forward about what was that, 2012, 2013. So go about 3 years, 2016 or so. And I'm in Roswell. And I'm with a gentleman, my then partner, and something happens in our hotel room. And I am reminded of that baby in the tube. And I'm given hybridization information. And some other weird stuff happens too. And so, as an experiencer advocate, helping experiencers around the world, I deal with a lot of people who have experience with the hybridization program, not just women, but men too. And it's one of the most difficult events to process because many women feel like they've been raped or abused, or this is all done without their permission, victimized. It's very hard to process. Men feel like that too. And so what I do is just listen without any judgment to someone's experience, and then I help them view the experience from a different perspective, a perspective from which you can find the good and you can learn from it and grow and expand your consciousness and hopefully benefit your life in many ways. And some people can do it pretty easily. For some people, it's kind of hard to switch their perspective because they're caught in the victimization perspective. And I've been there. And that's why I was afraid of the Greys, because I just assumed they were abusing me like everybody else did. But they actually, the Greys, it was the Greys that helped me pop out of the victimization vibe. And so now I help experiencers do that too. Two of our most famous experiencers, Travis Walton and Terry Lovelace, they've also changed their perspective on what happened to them. And Travis went from thinking they were trying to kill him to now believing they were trying to save his life. And Terry has also started to see that the Greys weren't really trying to hurt him. And so this happens often to experiencers if they take the time to do the introspection, to look at it and do their best to look at it from another perspective without the filters of fear and victimization. Oh my gosh, it changes your life.
Now, do you know if your then partner, was he also an experiencer?
Yes, while he was with me, I would not say he was one before we met. He managed a brand new missile defense program. He shot satellites out of the sky. He's involved with space in secret ways. I've always found that interesting. He's the one that took me to White Sands Missile Range right before we went to Roswell. So I do find his connection to White Sands and to space and to secret things interesting in my life. Interesting that I was with him when I came out and that he was very supportive. So we had a shared experience in Roswell, which I can tell you about. And then also one night I woke up and standing on his side of the bed was this tall golden light being, like it looked like was made up of stars in the shape of a human. It was beautiful, tall, and it was looking down on him. And whenever I see weird things in the middle of the night, I always lift my head off my pillow to make sure I am awake and blink. So I lifted my head off my pillow and I'm blinking. And as soon as we see each other, it blinks out. So I told him this the next morning. He's like, no, you didn't see that. You were sleeping. I'm like, okay. One time he woke up with a very strange mark on his arm, and he was open, not 100% believer, but he was open. He was gathering data that he couldn't explain.
So he worked directly at White Sands?
He would go to White Sands for work. He was not military. Uh,
Civilian. Yeah.
he was working at the Navy Yard in Washington, D.C.
So what happened during that Roswell incident?
I was living on Capitol Hill in Washington, D.C. This was his last year of work. And so they tempted him. They're like, hey, you want to go live in Hawaii for a year and manage this defense system that we're putting up on the island of Kauai? And we're like, yeah. So that year, I spent a couple of months in Kauai, a couple of months on Capitol Hill. I would just fly back and forth. And he lived in Kauai the whole time. So this time I was back on Capitol Hill, and he calls me and he says, I have to go to White Sands for work. Why don't you meet me in El Paso? I'll pick you up, I'll show you White Sands, and then I'll take you to Roswell. And I was like, what? Because I've known about Roswell since I was a little girl. And this was up out of the blue, completely unexpected. So I'm like, okay, this is interesting. We go to White Sands. I could not stand White Sands Missile Range. As soon as I got there, all my hair stood up on end. And in my mind's eye, I just saw these hallways and rooms under the ground, and it was just a bad feeling. It's at the base of a big black mountain. I couldn't get out of there fast enough. And once we finally got out, I said, I don't ever want to come back here again. And then we went sliding down these beautiful white gypsum hills in White Sands. That's why they call it White Sands. That was fun. Then we went to Roswell, got to our hotel room. We're both tired. He goes to the bathroom, and I'm sitting on the bed and I'm switching through the TV channels. And I'm thinking to myself, I wish the show People of Earth would come on. Do you know that show? Oh my gosh, don't you miss it? It was so good.
I
So
loved
it's
it. I loved it.
produced by Conan O'Brien, and it's really funny take on an experiencer support group. And it has a gray, and it has a reptilian, and it has a Nordic, and really good, well-known actors, comedic actors, and I loved it. But it was only on for 2 seasons, I think. So when I was wishing to see it, it was over. I already knew it ended. It wasn't going to be on. So he came out of the bathroom, and I stopped the TV on a commercial. He said what he had to say, and then he finished, and I turned the TV back on. I didn't even change the channel, and People of Earth came on. Yeah, and that caught my attention. I'm like, oh, all right. He hadn't seen it. So we watched it and we laughed and we went to sleep. It wigged me out, but I didn't say anything. And then next thing I know, I wake up. The room is pitch black. I literally can't see my hand. And I hear footsteps on the carpet. And I feel him getting into the bed. And I think, why was he sitting on the couch? Was it because of the aliens? And I go back to sleep. So I wake up in the morning. He's taking a shower. And I'm thinking, why did I think he was on the couch? Because he never gets up in the middle of the night and sits on the couch. And why did I say, was it because of the aliens? And at that very moment, I got this intense rush, this download, visual, feeling, hearing, everything. And I saw that night, I was talking to a group of Greys. They were giving me information about a book, and they were also giving me information about the hybridization program. So when I went to sleep that night, I did not know any of this. I woke up with information I never knew before. And they reminded me of the baby in the tube. And they said, yes, we have a hybridization program. This is the one with the Greys and humans. The Greys lost their ability to be empathetic and sympathetic. So they started to die out. and they're using the DNA of humans to create these embryos. In case we annihilate ourselves, then our Earth will be reseeded with these embryos, and there's billions of them. And we're on the path of annihilation, but it's not too late. We can turn around, but we're on it. And they're picking humans, for the most part, to hybridize with that have above average psychic abilities, that are very empathetic and sympathetic, very loving, intelligent. And the embryos that are being created are very loving and intuitive. And at one point, there was a galactic concern. What if a negative entity or a negative group of entities takes over these embryos and uses them as killing machines? And I was told these embryos are created to be so loving that they would make the worst killing machine that there is. So there's no worry of that. So he comes out of the shower, and I asked him, did anything weird happen last night? And he goes, yes. And I could tell by the look on his face, he wasn't right. And he's very logical. And I said, what happened? And he goes, I can't even describe what happened. I have never felt like this in my whole entire life. But I woke up in the middle of the night because there was something in the room staring at us. And I got out of bed and I tried to find it, and I couldn't find it. I got back in, but it's staring at us. And I finally gave up. So I got out of bed and I went and I sat on the couch. And I watched you toss and turn and toss and turn, and I thought you were awake. So I told him what I remember, and we were both freaked out. And I thought, when I get back home to Capitol Hill, I'll feel better. And the last thing I want is for any of my clients to know this, because my clients cannot know that I'm talking to aliens. I thought I would lose all of them and my practice would die. But I couldn't shake it. I couldn't shake it for a couple of months. It really wigged me out.
Since you were talking about like a plan B for Earth, reseeding the planet, I've had a lot of guests on that were talking about a new Earth out there, either in another dimension or physically in this one. But
Oh.
were you ever told anything about that? Because some of them, like some humans, might have been like transported to that new planet. So I was wondering if you ever heard anything about that.
No, I was only given information about what these embryos are being used for, and they're being stored for that reason. And for this Earth, it was clear that when we kill each other ourselves off on this Earth would be repopulated.
Okay. Some of my guests, or one, Jeff Salver, was told that that faction of Greys wanted to implement a project. They wanted to install a city roughly in central North America, where the city would be like an Enlightened City, where the hybrids would be living. Now this would be in the future. The US, I don't think the US existed anymore. Like there would be like these fraction states here and there.
Oh, so that means we do annihilate ourselves then, according to.
Yeah, humanity's still there. It's just that they implement they build this city where you need to be consciously evolved to be able to use the technology there.
Mhm.
So through um, um, a physical joining of both the humans and the hybrids, eventually everybody's going to be more like physically DNA at least evolved.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes,
So
that's the goal.
um, okay, so let me see. I'm looking at my notes. Now, do you know what your mission is really? Because you did talk about that earlier on.
Right now, I don't really like to call it a mission. I call it my focus. Right now, my focus is helping people actualize their purpose, fulfill their potential through my soul purpose readings, and also to describe my ET contact so that everybody knows this is really happening, and we have to take our heads out of the sand. It's gotten to the point now where if you're denying this, you have to look inward, like, what are you afraid of? I mean, there's so much evidence now. If you're denying it, this has now become more of a mental issue. Like you're really afraid of something. What is it? What is it? What is it within you that just cannot handle this? Can't grasp it. And I understand because I've been there. I've been there for most of my life. And so that's why I want to help people not to get stuck in that place, and also to help experiencers so that talking to a being from another planet or another star system is absolutely amazing and remarkable. And we shouldn't be embarrassed, and we shouldn't feel like we have to hide, because the messages that we're getting are extraordinary, and they're to better humanity and mankind. No longer do I want us to be suppressed and afraid and made fun of, because we have important information to share. Mostly the messages are, let's love each other. Let's love each other as much as we can. Unity, unity. There's also other messages too. And all the work I've done with experiencers, there seems to be 5 categories of information that the ETs are imparting on human beings. They're giving them information about scientific innovation, information about how to strengthen their psychic abilities, information about the hybridization program, information about personal self-empowerment, which the government doesn't like us to have, and also the possible future fate for humanity. Many experiencers have shown devastation, and we're seeing it.
Now, your next experience, is that the one that you had the X on your behind? Is that the one?
Yeah, that happened here on
Okay.
the inner banks of North Carolina. Yeah, that was 2017. And so Roswell had already happened. And at this point, I'm very afraid of the Greys. And it was my second morning here. We had just moved here. And I was in the kitchen unpacking dishes. And I felt something bite my butt, and it hurt. So I yelled over, will you look at my butt? I think something bit it. I walk over to the living room and I pull down my shorts and I bend over. And he's not saying anything. And I'm intuitively thinking something's very wrong. And what's happening? I'm getting really nervous. Well, did something bite my butt? And he says, yes. And there's also a red X. That was on my left cheek. And it was about 1.5 to 2 inches wide. So I see this picture and I knew right away it was the Greys. I don't remember getting it. And when I ran my finger over it, I couldn't feel it. So I'm very scared. I'm upset. He's shocked. And I said to him, we're going to pretend like we never saw this. Right. Because that's what I've done for decades, everything. All the marks on my body, the missing skin, invisible things touching me, weird lights in the hallway, all of it just filed away into this cabinet in the dark recesses of my mind. And then, but this X filled up that cabinet like my cabinet exploded. I had to face it. And he just looked at me like I was crazy. Like, how can we ignore this? I'm like, well, we're just going to. It's like, all right. Then 9 days later, although I couldn't forget it, I thought about it every day. And then 9 days later, I come to in my room, ding, once again, wide awake, no grogginess. And I have this instant download. And it's like a movie. It's me seeing it through my own eyes. and I was on a bed, like a hospital type bed, and I was in a room that I did not recognize. It was dimly lit, and I'm on my side, and I can't move my arms or my legs, so I feel paralyzed. And I sense that there's something behind me, and I could move my neck. So I turn around, and right behind me, like 2 inches from me, is a gray doing something to my back. And we lock eyes. We just stare into each other's eyes, just a couple inches away from each other. And I describe it in my book. It was like looking into two pools of black oil. And the other thing that really scared me is there was no telepathic communication, because in all my other dealings with the Greys, there was always communication. This time there was nothing, and that made it even freakier for me. So I turned my head back around, and ding, I'm in my bedroom. And I'm scared, because if I have another X on me, I didn't think I was going to be able to take it. Like, that would just be too much. So I go downstairs, and I wait for him to wake up. And he always got up before I did, but not this time. And I'm waiting for him. And I could have looked myself, but I didn't want to look. I was just too scared. So he comes downstairs, and I ask him, did anything weird happen last night? No. Was I missing? No. He's like, what happened? So I told him. And I also knew something I've never known before. When I was in that room, I knew I was on the moon. So with that, will you look at my butt? And he does, and there's just silence. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm not going to be able to take this. This is going to push me over the edge. And I'm getting very scared. I'm like, well, is there another X? He says, yeah, there's another one on your right cheek, opposite from the first one, and they look alike. So I had at that moment what I call an existential crisis, because all of a sudden I was confronted with the reality that all the contact that I've had my whole entire life was real. What am I doing talking to aliens? Who am I? Who are we? What's going on? I don't know the truth about anything anymore. I don't know anything. And I felt like I was just floating in this void of nothing. And it was scary. So I started to cry. And then I declared I need help. And that was the first time in my life I ever asked help for this. And I had no idea. Who do you call to help if you met an ET? I had no idea. So I just let it organically happen. And that's when I met Kathleen Martin. And she's the one that helped me process. And it's because of Kathy that I am now an experiencer advocate.
Bravo. I met Kathy, I think, in 2018.
Yeah, isn't
Yeah.
she delightful?
Yeah.
You've
Wow.
met everybody.
Yeah. Well, I
Cool.
know. But let me see. While you were on the moon in that room, do you recall seeing any furniture?
Other than the bed I was on that looked like a hospital bed, across from me was like a small chest of drawers, very small. That's it. Everything seemed like it was a gray color or kind of hard and shiny. That's all I remember.
Were you paralyzed?
I couldn't move my arms and I couldn't move my legs, but I could move my neck. And I was lying on my side.
Um, okay. You used the word groggy. Now that triggered a memory in me, but have you ever woken up from an experience and you were groggy, or during an experience and you were groggy?
My experience has been when I wake up from ET contact, I'm wide awake. It feels like they just dropped me back in. Now, I've had some interesting experiences in that grogginess state. Are you calling about that state in between awake and asleep?
I felt drugged up. Waking up during an
Oh,
event and I'm super drugged up. So it could have been MILAB. I'm still on the fence about that, but
Yeah, I've had my lab too.
Yeah, we'll get into that later. I woke up with now this is prior. So this happened in December of 2013. I wake up in front I was dating my fiance who was a British child abductee at the time, and so I
British
wake up,
what?
sorry,
British what?
child abductee, gray
Oh,
abductee. Yeah.
oh, okay.
And so there was a now I know it's a portal, but I saw it as a black disc, maybe 5.5 by 4 inches or 3.5 inches wide. It was so this was in the dark, but there was enough light coming in through the living room windows, entering my bedroom that when my eyes were open, I was enough light to see everything. So there was this black disc-ish floating in my bedroom doorway. My brain registered it, with the sizes and all that, but it didn't say any width. And so my brain registered as seeing something that wasn't being held in place. So it was floating. It was just there. So the light switch was just above me. So I jump and flip it on. It disappears. My fiance wakes up in a jolt, panicking. What's happening? What's happening? I tell her the story about the black disc. And she says, no, I'm not waking up because of you. A man was telling her telepathically nonstop, warning her EMP, EMP, EMP nonstop, electromagnetic pulse. So we knew both events were associated because she's got a pretty interesting story. And so it takes about half an hour. We fall back to sleep. And during that night, so this was in winter, I tend to wake up a lot because of the cold, uh, to go to the bathroom. So I wake up this time, but I'm looking at let's say I was sleeping on my left side, so I'm looking at the floor where the main entrance into the bedroom was. And I get the feeling there's movement coming in through the doorway where the portal was, but I black out. So I wake up. This time I'm facing her, now on my right side, and I'm super drugged up.
Mm.
So I open my eyes and I look around the bedroom, like in a groggy state, like waking up from anesthesia. And in front of the bed and on her side of the bed, total, I'm seeing these at least 5, 6 feet tall, very broad-shouldered shadow beings. So
Ooh.
they're in between realms. So that's why we see them as shadows. So, and where the neck was, I see these disproportionately huge round helmets on the shoulders. Not human type heads, would have been like somewhat small, but a lot bigger there. And they're moving in front of the bed, and I'm seeing through them. So they were blacker than the night, but see-through. And why I say 6 feet tall, because I'm 6 foot tall, but my closet doors are about my height. So with some effort, I'm able to raise my hand and say hi. I then black out and I wake up, God knows when or where. And I'm looking towards the floor for some reason. And I realize I'm barefoot, but I'm wearing hospital robes. And then I black out and I wake up the next morning. And just like uh, your boyfriend at the time, he didn't believe you, but that's what happened. My fiance at the time didn't believe me because she slept like a baby throughout the night. But that's what
He
happened.
believed me. He believed me. He just,
Okay.
okay, okay. The fact that you said hospital gown took me back to one of the experiences I had where I was in a hospital gown and like this medical situation, but there were humans there. And I remember looking down on this tile floor. I was barefoot and I had a hospital gown on. And I looked down and there was blood on the floor between my feet. And this doctor man came up to me and he was really nice, but he was fake. I could tell he's faking. He's not really this nice. He's like, oh, let's make sure you're okay. Oh, let's make sure that you're going to be okay. Everything's going to be okay. And then that's all I remember. But there were other medical type of humans walking around. And that really, the feeling that I had, I go by feeling. The feeling that I had is the same kind of feeling that I had in my other MILAB experiences. So I do feel that they're related.
Wow. Well, at least you know it's MILAB. I still don't know, but
Yeah, it could
hopefully
be something else. I
could
mean, it
be.
could be two different things, three different things. I don't know, but it's just a yucky feeling.
Yeah.
Like I've never heard like a happy MILAB story. There isn't one. It's either neutral or it's absolutely devastatingly horrendous. And I've had both.
Well, it could have been like again, like you said, two of them, but I could have had a visitation and then MILAB to find out what happened during that visitation. That's what I think.
Yeah, like you mean we're debriefed.
Because it did happen to me before.
We are absolutely
Yeah.
debriefed.
Yeah.
Yeah,
They were
I
telling
have.
me, what did the gray say? What did the gray say? What did the gray say?
Yes.
And I told them, the gray said, but this is what another experience of mine, but the gray said to me that I had an important mission, and that's it. They were super pissed. They get up, they leave, and that's when I black out and wake up in bed.
Okay, this is very interesting. My lab stories are the hardest ones for me to share because they're just like the creepiest and the weirdest. And really, it's harder for me to believe that than I talk to ETs. Um, my first MILAB happened the very same day I talked to Kathleen Marden for the first time. And because when I was talking to her, one of the things I said was, I'm afraid of the government, you know, men in black. I'm afraid they're going to come and get me. And so we talked about that. And then right after our conversation, I called my mom and my landline went dead. I was like, oh my God, the government knows who I am. I just talked to Kathleen Martin. Now they're on to me. And the phone came back on. And that night I had my first MILAB experience where I was being asked for information. I was in this government kind of drab looking office. I remember I had to go downstairs to get there. Everything is drab colored, and there's men. There's always the same kind of men, young, like in their 30s, with drab colored clothing, like short hair. No emotion, none. And I was standing in front of this poster. It was the flight path of a UFO. And the man standing next to me, and there's all these scientific equations along the way. And the man standing next to me asked me, when does a spaceship attain its K point? And then that's all I remember. Now I have a biology degree from Loyola. And I'm like, I probably learned about K point. I don't remember. And I looked it up and it's a real thing. And I told Grant Cameron about it. You know, Grant Cameron, the famous UFO researcher from Canada. And he sent me a story about a lady who made contact with the Greys, and the Greys were teaching her about the K point. And then one time I was watching the Winter Olympics, I was watching the ski jump, and the announcer was talking about the skier's K point. So it has something to do with liftoff, landing, something, I'm not quite sure. And then my worst experience, the worst experience of all, which is very, very, very hard for me to talk about. They wanted me to do something which I refused to do, and that's why I was tortured. Have you been tortured?
No.
Mentally, mine was mental.
Okay. So
How
what
many,
happened?
how many MILABs have you had
I
that
think
you've
that
been?
was the only one.
Oh, well, you've had
Because
more, I'm
well,
sure.
my fiance, her great grandfather was a knight, a British knight, and a brigadier in the military, and was best friends with Eisenhower and Patton. So my phone was
Um,
tapped the entire time we were together. So I could have been because of her that they visited. But I've had my own stuff. It's like UFOs flying over the house, just above the trees, stuff like that. Uh,
that's interesting.
yeah, well, it's just my life. You get used to it, and that's it. But I always talk about a 7 year gap, 7 to 8 year gap, where things slow down, and then the only recently they started back up again. So who
Mm.
knows? Uh,
Yeah, I have noticed that too. It's kind of cyclical. Yeah.
uh, Getting back to that human ET that you met as a child, did you ever see him again later on?
When he flew away for the last time, I don't think so. However, and this is also something that I don't talk much about. After my Roswell, when I went back to Capitol Hill, and I just couldn't shake it. I finally confided in a friend who said that she knew a hypnotist in Virginia that specialized with experiencers. So I decided to go to her. It was 3 hours one way. And so my boyfriend came home and I said, this weekend we're driving 3 hours one way so I can get hypnotized. He said, sure. So he came with me and he was actually in the room with me, took really good notes. And it was really good to have him there. So he viewed what happened and he realized something real was happening. He couldn't explain what was going on, but he said, I was talking in voices that didn't sound like mine, and I was also talking in speech patterns that I don't use and use vocabulary that I normally don't use. So for him, he understood something was going on, but he didn't know what it was. And in my book, I dedicate an entire chapter to this regression, almost word for word. But at the same time, I don't know what hypnotism is. I don't know what a hypnotic state is. Is it real? Is it not? I don't know. I do know that it helps a lot of people. So I just focus on that part. Going back to your question, did I ever meet that being again? Well, in this hypnotic regression, one of the first things that happened was I found myself standing in front of a group of people. They were human looking, but they weren't humans. They were obviously from another planet, another race, another star system, but they looked very humanish. And they had on that one-piece leotard thing, and they had on this big triangle. And they looked very much like that man that came to see me when I was little. So it's very possible.
Were you regressed by Kathy Martin?
Yes.
Okay. So what did you learn working with her?
She's very good. I would recommend it very much. The regression that I did with her, she's my friend. She's my good friend, a mentor. We did it because something happened and we both wanted clarity on it, and I don't want to talk about it. I don't have her permission to talk about it. And so I was she did a regression on me to get some answers as to what happened. And it was successful. It was good.
Good. Because I'm asking because you did a regression once and there was a being with a blue jumpsuit that came through.
Yeah, that's the one that I'm talking about. The one, yeah, the one where I went to Virginia for the regression. So it was that group of people with the big triangle on it. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Um, do you have like a certain messages that the ETs might have given to you that they wanted you to share with everyone?
Yes, that we are on the path of annihilation, so we have to wake up because we're at a crisis point. And they are here to help humanity. They're not here to set us back. But there is a galactic concerted effort to save us and this planet. We don't exist all by ourselves in a vacuum. We are part of this huge interrelated, interconnected galactic community. If we blow ourselves up or annihilate ourselves, the energy of that will radiate through the cosmos. So we're not acting independently and all by ourselves. So I say we're like the juvenile delinquents of the neighborhood here. And so we're clueless in so many ways. And once again, they like to draw emphasis on our quantumness, that we exist, each of us exists in a variety of different frequencies and a variety of different planes, and we're having experiences in those frequencies. And that there is so much more to living a purpose-filled life than focusing on 3D duality. A lot of the messages and a lot of the help is coming so that we can really take a good look at how everything needs to be black and white for us, and it just doesn't work that way. And we see a lot of growth when it comes to sexual orientation. It's not black or white anymore with sexual orientation. This is just the tip of the iceberg, blurring the lines a little bit. So there is no fear or hate, and the opposite of it is love. We live in that world, which makes it so difficult because so many of us are vibrating on that opposite end of that beam, the lower vibe end, and the same beam, the same beam as fear on the opposite end where it's a higher frequency is love. And those are the basic messages. It's all very positive and beautiful. Self-empowerment. Don't let the government rule you. You are autonomous. Tap into your power. Be all you can be. I mean, these are beautiful messages.
True. Wow. Um, let's talk about your website and the services you offer to people.
That's nice. Thank you. My website is planetsev.com. I named it Planet Sev for two reasons. Number one, I view each of us as our own planet with our own biosphere, ecosystem, laws, everything. And also, many years ago, my best friend was dating a writer, and he got a job writing a short story for Star Wars. And he said to me, Sev Tok, I like your name. Sounds like a planet. I'm going to name a planet after you. And I thought he was kidding. So the book came out, and there I am, the Sev Tok planet. I'm in Wikipedia. I really exist. Actually, I was recently mentioned in an episode of Star Wars Andor. For anyone who watches that, they mentioned I got so many emails and phone calls. And now I like to joke, like, I don't even know if I own my name. Does Disney own my name? I do not know. Am I allowed to say Sev Tok? And there's also a Sev doll. I have it, but it's a sniper and it's covered in blood. And my name means love. Sev means love and Tok means full. Yeah, so to have it's a Star Wars doll called Sev that it's a killer. And it's like, I don't care for that. And on my website, I describe the various offerings I have: soul purpose session, soul support session, a third eye journey where we meditate together and you meet a spirit guide, you learn how to channel, how to download information, and then also I show you a couple of symbols and you download the information about what those symbols stand for. I love the third eye journey. It's so much fun. And past life I also do. And I help experiencers. I'm an experiencer advocate. So those are all the services that I offer. I have a brand new talk show, Alien Spirit with Sev, on KGRA and on my YouTube channel. Also on Facebook, and I'm on Instagram, and I'm really easy to find. I was recently on an episode of Ancient Aliens. I'm on an upcoming episode of The Proof is Out There. I think that comes out next week or the week after. Gaia TV, Canadian documentary. Yeah, I'm just trying to spread the word.
Let's talk
That's my
about your book, Sev. Now, was it a healing thing getting your book out?
You have the right to talk to aliens.
Yep.
Yes. I was shocked that I even wrote it because when I went to sleep, I had no desire to write a book. But when I woke up with the knowing that I was writing a book, which came very shocking to me. And I wrote it pretty quickly, and it changed my life. I'm so glad I came out. All the things I was afraid of, none of them happened. I would lose friends, I would lose family. Okay, maybe some friends and family think I'm strange, but I can't say I lost anybody important in my life. I did not lose clients. On none of the things I didn't lose the gentleman that I was with. All the things I was afraid of, none of them happened. And that's one thing I'd like to remind people. Like, stop dwelling on all the things that could go wrong because chances are they're not.
Did one of the reasons why you decided to write the book was because the Greys or like star people wanted you to?
Oh, going back to what happened in Roswell when I met with the Greys and they were talking to me about a book. And at that time, I was writing another book. It was all about love, through the spiritual work that I was doing. And they wanted me to write another book. And at that point, I did not like them. So I was like, who the hell are you to Mr. Gray to tell me to write a book? Like, who are you to tell me what kind of book to write? That was my attitude. And I do think it was this book ultimately. I do, because I didn't write that other book about love yet.
We've been at this for an hour, Sev. Let's call it a night. But do you have like a closing statement that you might want to get out, or like a final story that you might want to share with everyone?
No, I don't really have a final story. But my final comments would be that if you are an experiencer, you don't have to be afraid to delve into your feelings and your fear. There are lots of us who'll help you. I'll help you. Other people will help you. Help is really easy to find right now. And for people who are not experiencers, please do your best just to love yourself as much as possible, because that's the hardest thing for humans, to show self-love. And that's where it all starts. And if you need help doing that, all you have to do is just listen to your heart, meditate just like you do, and you'll get all the answers, or you can reach out for help. But those are my final comments. Thank you.
Thank you
so much.
You're a lovely person, and you're a lovely soul. So thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you. My pleasure.
And to those watching, hope you enjoyed today's interview. I'm your host, Mr. Gray. More interviews coming up, and I'll see you guys next time. So take care, everyone. Hello, everyone. This is Mr. Gray, and thanks for watching today's episode. If you are an abductee, contactee, or experiencer, and you believe that your story could help others, please feel free to contact me through my YouTube channel email. When it comes to experiencers, the ET phenomena, and the future, remember, truth will out.